a lot of times I can give advice that might be a bit more on the tough love side of things, and I realize that. But I try to also make a balance and give the nice cutesy advice that actually does work, right? Because that's what I'm focused on. I'm focused on what works, what makes a healthy relationship, what makes a happy relationship. And sometimes that means you need to be strong. And that's why I do tough love, because tough love is engineered for people who need it or will respond well to it. Depends on the situation. But if you don't respond well to it, then sometimes you really need it, just maybe in a larger dose to kind of wake you up, right? Because being tough is very necessary for a lot of things socially and romantically for reasons I've gone over in many videos. But I do also like the cutesy stuff as long as it's helpful and as long as it works, right? Now, some people will say that nice cutesy stuff you shouldn't do, right? You shouldn't say I love you. You should only say I love you X amount of times. You shouldn't show that too many emotions. The kind of James Bond, cool, unemotional, sultry approach to things. I don't think that's right. I think that despite there's a hair on the camera. I don't even know if you can see it. That was kind of romantic. Like, let me get the eyelash off your eyes, baby. Kind of moved. But I think even if you have a cool stoic personality, I think you should still be doing this. Because if you have a cool stoic personality and then you're showing your wife or your girlfriend that she's the exception, well, that's going to make her feel really special because you don't do this with everyone, right? You don't show that soft side of you with everyone. But regardless, you should be doing it because every woman wants to feel cherished and loved, right? If you are of the red pill persuasion and you think that like, oh, you're going to get beta-ized or cocked or whatever, and that might seem strange to you, but I get comments like that pretty often, right? I either get comments from like one side of the spectrum. They're like, oh, you're such an asshole, blah, 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 ist or ism accusation, right? And I'm like, okay, so to these people, I'm too hardcore. But then to other people, they're like, oh, you're going to get trounced and cucked and taken advantage of because modern women, da-da-da-da-da, right? I think that's a very good sign. If both sides are hating me, it means I'm doing something right because it means I'm avoiding the stupid ideological extremes. There are bits and pieces of both extremes that have truth to them, but you have to make sure to take only the true parts and then leave out the bullshit. Because like I said, I'm only interested in what's true, right? So long fucking introduction for me telling you, right, that you should tell your wife or your girlfriend every day that you appreciate her and you love her, right? That you're grateful for having her in your life. And if you don't feel this way about your girlfriend or your wife, you're with the wrong person. Either you're not passionate enough about her or you don't actually feel that way about her, right? Which means that you're with her for the wrong reasons. You're with her because, it's comfortable. You're with her because it's better than nothing. You're with her because you're only sexually attracted to her, right? And these aren't the right reasons to be with someone, right? You should, of course, be with someone because you're sexually attracted to them. I mean, sex is the cornerstone of all relationships. But there's going to be times in the relationship where that's not going to be the most important part, especially when you get older, right? And you both look like a bag of milk. We sometimes complain about, oh, Western society is degrading and blah, blah, blah. But then we don't live up to the standards that we are crying that aren't there anymore. Like staying by someone's side when things get tough. When someone, gets depressed and anxious, or someone gains weight, or someone goes through a hard time in their life and they're not, quite as charming and interesting and sexy as it used to be. When someone is dealing with any sort of trouble internally or externally, job's not going well, business is failing, right? If you don't appreciate the person in your life, enough that you would want to tell them that every single day, you're with the wrong person. And you need to be with someone that you do actually feel that about. Now, if you're afraid to say it, that could also mean that you're with the wrong person, that this person is making you afraid to say it because you feel like they would take advantage of you. But that's not always necessarily true. You might be with a good, healthy person, but you have your own fucked up baggage, right? Because you have been taken advantage of in the past by maybe a girl who you... Guys who give the whole story of like, oh, I showed her my feelings, and then she took advantage of it. That's never the full story. There was always something more going on. Now, the full story could be he just married a cunt or dated a cunt, and she... There are some women who will see that as a weakness. I did date someone like that, right? But there were still more details involved. Like, I wasn't just being weak. I was also being jealous and possessive and this and that. But she did take advantage of it, right? And I had periods where she was going through her tough stuff and I was there for her. And it was hard because it was annoying, but like I was still there and supported her. But then when I had the same problem, the anxiety and whatever, she wasn't there to support me, and she, went running. And that showed me her true character, right? So actually it was a blessing. But there would be some people out there who would give you advice and say, oh, well, you can't show weakness. And it's like, well, no, actually in that case, I would want to show weakness because I would want to, I would want the demon to reveal herself, right, for who she is. That's a very good test. It's like testing a friend for loyalty, like, you should show weakness to a friend or put yourself in a situation where a friend could take advantage of you so that you can see how they act when they do have the chance to take advantage of you, and see when they act that way in that situation. You see their real feelings come out, right? Same thing with a relationship. So if you're afraid to be vulnerable and tell a girl, you love her and you appreciate her every day, I think you should definitely do it, right? And see how they react. Now, this isn't going to solve all problems, right? And there is still also if you're just a lovey-dovey, cutesy teddy bear in a relationship, well, then you're not also being sexy and attractive, right? You have to be a dynamic figure, right? A relationship is 3 parts. You're her lover, you're her boyfriend, and you're her friend, right? The lover is the sexual part, the lustful side of a relationship, which is very important. The boyfriend stuff is the, connection and, doing things together and growing together and this and that. And then the friendship part is like the trust part and the being there when things are hard. Like you just care about them because they're a person, right? Whereas the boyfriend and the lust stuff, that's more of like, the love and the lust stuff, that's like you connect with them sexually and then you connect with them emotionally on like a value to value level, right? But then the friend is there just because, they're a friend. That's where you get kind of maybe the unconditional love part, but that also plays a part in the love, right? But they're kind of intertangled qualities. But you don't just have one dimension when you're in a relationship with someone. You have multiple identities that are kind of, sometimes working against each other. But if you're good at it, they actually complement each other and work together. But yeah, if you think that it's weak to say I love you and I appreciate you, you're just doing it wrong, right? Or you're with the wrong person. The way you should do it is, it could be the cutesy, like, oh, I love you, I appreciate you. But it can also be this very intense, very sincere moment where you look someone in the eyes and say, I just wanted to tell you, because I forgot to tell you today, that I really appreciate you. And I love you, and thank you for being in my life. Really, thank you. And you say that because they actually have provided something for you, right? If it's the first couple months of a relationship, you might not have the ammunition to really say that with full force. But if you've actually gone through something together, right, and she has supported you and you've supported her and you're still together, then yeah, you have more than good reason to say that. And you should, because you would appreciate it too, right? You should be treating her how you would want to be treated. Pretty typical golden rule stuff. The problem is people are one-dimensional in some respects. They're either of one of two extremes. They're a love bug, but then they don't also have that strength that makes them attractive on a masculine level, right? They're just kind of this overly soft, feminine, fluffy teddy bear, right? Or they're the opposite. They try to be the strong, like, oh yeah, I'm a man, or I'm a manly man, and, I'm not going to say I love you because James Bond wouldn't say it, right? And they have this, like, caricature in their mind. But actually what's really funny is that the woman actually respects the balanced man more than she does the overly masculine man, because the overly masculine man is overcompensating, and people usually can sense that. And she can sense that you're actually too weak to be vulnerable, right? There's this, this is a really random example, right? But it's what came to mind, and I always like to tell little stories. But basically the point of the story is willingly being vulnerable and showing your weakness is a sign that, like, even if you were to stab me in the back, it really wouldn't hurt me that much, which is really how you should feel about relationships. It's like all of these hardcore red pill guys, they're so afraid of getting hurt, but someone who's truly strong is like, okay, if you hurt me, so what? You didn't kill me, right? I was I was on the Instagram, or maybe it was a YouTube short, and in the interview was George St. Pierre. He's probably one of the best or the best mixed martial artists of all time. And he was talking about when he was on like a safari in Africa or somewhere, and he was in the jungle, and they were like hanging out with fucking gorillas. And obviously they're pretty imposing figures. I mean, they can rip you apart in like half a second. But he's like, at one point, this one gorilla came up to him, stood behind him, and then turned its back completely to him. And the guide explained that the gorilla was kind of trying to show George, like, you're so weak and I'm so unafraid of you that I'm willing to turn my back to you, right? And it's kind of this it's like taunting in a fight or something. Now, how does that relate to relationships? I mean, it's a bit of a stretch, but like, that's creativity, right? Being able to connect things that seem kind of different, but like actually they have a connecting point, right? So to me, what resonated with me there is that, like, it's like a warrior walking into a war with no armor, right? It's like, whoa, either this guy is a complete fucking retard and he's gonna die in like 3 seconds, or like he's got, I don't know, fucking magic or some shit, right? That's the kind of power that I'm interested in, right? You should obviously be practically smart, right? And not, tell someone untrustworthy a secret, or, tell someone you love them in the first, month of being with them, unless there's actual, there's never too soon to do things. The only too soon to do something is when there isn't a good reason to, but I don't think there's a time limit reason really, right? But you should obviously be smart and not be stupid. But there's also a point where being so safe and so scared is a sign of weakness. And it's a sign that you're not willing to turn your back and possibly be, betrayed. And I like to take this concept to the end and to all points of a relationship. Once I've established that this person is reasonably trustworthy, I'm willing to start taking leaps of faith. And I'll keep taking leaps of faith until I have dived too far and they've shown their true colors. But if they continue to show trustworthiness, I will keep going and going and going and telling them, deep dark secrets and vulnerabilities and, blah, blah, blahs, right? And I do this because I really don't have anything to lose. If they were to betray me, perfect. That betrayal just makes me smarter and it makes me stronger, because when you cut me without armor, the scar is going to heal and it's going to teach me a lesson. Whereas if you wear armor, yeah, it's smart and it's useful, but the body isn't growing strong from the cut and from the blow, right? Metaphor seems pretty fucking obvious, right? So you're picking up what I'm putting down, right? Same thing applies here, right? It might be scary to make yourself so vulnerable. But I think overall, there's really not too many negatives outside of short-term pain. And then the positives, right? Because we have to include the positives are, I mean, women and people in general like to be told nice things, right? Just like I said, golden rule. You would love to be told, I appreciate you. You're awesome. Da, da, da. Thank you for being in my life. Like, if you had someone in your life every day who is telling you these positive things, I mean, imagine the changes to your mentality that this would have. You would become a much more positive person, right? Now, if you're overly reliant on it, then yeah, of course, then it's actually a weakness. But having positive influences around you is like everything, right? If you hang around people who are rich, you have a very good chance of becoming more rich. If you hang around people who are charismatic and funny, you're probably going to become more charismatic and funny through osmosis and absorbing their qualities. If you spend time around people who are positive and sweet and nice to you, you're going to be positive, right? If you spend time around people who are insulting of you and talk down to you or, rude, well, it's going to rub off on you and you're going to slowly have bad self-esteem. So wouldn't you want to create that environment? Because here's what's interesting is the woman you're dating might want to be more open and lovey-dovey, but she's afraid just like you are. But if you give that permission, you can actually enhance, right? So you can enhance the love that you're feeling for each other. This is a principle in love, lust, trust, which is how I see attraction, right? There's love, there's lust, and there's trust. But trust serves as kind of it's its own thing, but it's also a gateway, or it's like a gatekeeper of lust and love, right? Because we can feel lust and love for each other, but we're afraid how much to show because we're not sure of how the other person feels. But like, if someone else comes up and says, hey, I think you're really hot, well, then you're going to feel more comfortable telling them, hey, I think you're really attractive, right? Because they went first, right? Like, oh, it's the first penguin who jumps into the cold water. And if, an orca doesn't come and eat it, it's like, okay, everyone can jump in it, right? Just like the first person who shows affection, the other person will feel more comfortable and confident to reciprocate, right? So when you're very lovey-dovey, you're going to allow your girlfriend or wife to feel more comfortable being lovey-dovey in response. So that's like a trust principle. But then there's also the love principle where just being a loving person, it is an admirable quality, right? It shows courage. It shows positivity. It's just a very admirable characteristic. If you're around someone who's just very positive and very nice and very sweet, you're just gonna, it's like being around them is like being around light, right? And even better than that, if they're also a very strong person who has strong boundaries and doesn't let people take advantage of them, I mean, that's like the ideal, right? It has all the positives of the fucking macho tough guy, but then none of the overcompensating secret hidden flaw vulnerabilities. But then if at the same time they're really sweet and loving, it's like, fuck, this person's just awesome, right? And there are people out there, they're very rare, but there are people out there who are just exemplary human beings. They're just really awesome beings, right? And you would want to be that, and you would also want that to be around you, right? Well, you can actually create and cultivate that by being really, really sweet and loving with your girlfriend or your wife. And one little step that you can do in creating that environment is practice it, right? Practice will create a new personality. You are not a fixed thing, right? You have the ability to grow. You have the ability to transform. And so if you start practicing this every day, you're going to get better at it. You're going to feel more comfortable. For me, it's just like, it's as easy as breathing. Hey, I really appreciate you. Thank you for being in my life. Do it every day. Do it you can do it just out of nowhere. You can just be like, hey, I totally forgot to tell you I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you for being in my life. Beautiful. Amazing. Right? Or it can be in response to something like your girlfriend or wife does something very sweet for you. It could be as simple as bringing you food or giving you a kiss or sucking your fucking dick really good, like draining your goddamn balls. I mean, you could be like, I appreciate you, right? I appreciate everything that you do for me. I appreciate all the roles that you play in my life. I appreciate you being, my friend. I appreciate you being my little fucking slut in bed and letting me fucking use you like a goddamn inflatable sex doll. I love you being a partner who I can grow with and a partner who I can cherish and love, right? I love everything that you are in my life, right? So, yeah, don't be afraid to be lovey-dovey. The real pussies are the one who don't try, right? Because they got burned and they're afraid to get burned again. But if you're afraid of pain, I think that's a pretty good definition of being a fucking pussy. And we're not being fucking pussies here. We're fucking pussies, but we're not being fucking pussies. That was fucking funny. Someone should clip that. But and also I've explained to you that showing affection actually grows attraction. It's an admirable quality, and it can actually create an opening for her to show more of her love. So I've already over-explained as usual. But yeah, I love you guys. Thank you for being in my life. I appreciate you. Whether you leave a like or a comment or you don't, or you leave a hateful comment, I love you. I might not like you, but I love you. All right? Cool. Best wishes. Bye.